Good day, everybody. It's 3rd of December, 2025. It's Wednesday. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And yes, if you all remember, yesterday, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, or should I say Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, were in Moscow talking with Vladimir Putin about this peace, if it's a peace negotiation or not. But I don't think anything really came of that meeting. They didn't announce anything. Russia is saying that it's best to keep these things secret. Of course, they don't like these leaks. There was a leak, I think, between Witkoff and what's this, Ushov or whatever, and no, they didn't like it. I don't think there was anything so crucial that was revealed or something anyway. So I don't know what the big stink is, but I guess they like to keep everything secret, so that's not a problem. I don't know. That's their deal. And the United States, everything gets leaked pretty easily. And, it's even like Donald Trump's peace plan. A lot of that stuff got leaked out and things were starting to get changed even before it got to Ukraine. And then Ukraine, of course, made all their changes, basically having everything written in that they won the war and they shouldn't have any concessions to pay, and Russia should pay them all, and everybody should get off scot-free that committed crimes, killing people and innocent people, bombing villages and school children, and all that sort of thing. Oh, they're all perfectly innocent, I guess. I don't know. Nobody's supposed to be answerable to any of those crimes. And of course, if you remember Bucha, they were saying that Russia was raping and killing and all that. And Russia keeps saying, well, can you show us some evidence? Name some of the names of these people. And they don't have any. And there's just way too much evidence that shows that a lot of it was nothing but a dog and pony show. And it's very, very probable that a lot of the Ukrainian special police that are aligned with the Nazis, they killed a lot of people. I've mentioned that already when anyone that took these aid packages from Russians, for food and all that, those people were killed. They just, when the Russians pulled out of there, the police went around and asked anybody, did this person get the aid package or that person? Anybody that got it, was killed. And that's why there were a lot of fresh bodies, even though it was like 4 days after Russia pulled out that the Ukrainians came in there. And, I think it was Scott Ritter that said there would have been like discolored bodies, and the smell would have been, overpowering, and the bodies which should be bloated up and rigor mortis and all this sort of stuff. And none of that stuff had happened because they were freshly killed. I think rigor mortis is like after 1 day or something. What a terrible subject to talk about. So anyway, I believe originally Witkoff and Kushner were supposed to fly off to Ireland, and then I think it was changed to go to Belgium. They're supposed to go to Brussels after their meeting with Vladimir Putin and meet with Zelensky, of course. Zelensky's always got to be the last one to talk to them. It's because a lot of time, I think it's even Trump, a lot of people say this, the last one whoever talks to him, that's the whatever the proposal that he always accepts. But I don't know if it didn't work. Anyway, Witkoff and Kushner, for who knows what reasons, they went directly to Washington after they left Moscow. And the talks, I guess, went for 5 hours. So maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. Yes. But one reason could have been that because Russia's conditions have not changed. They've not changed at all for like over a year. Russia still keeps saying the same thing. The only problem is that things keep changing on the ground. So it's not like Russia will say, well, we'll see this and we'll see that. It's not really like that now. And Russia is also making not only big gains in the Donbass, they're making major gains also in Kherson and Zaporozhye. I just read today about something in Zaporozhye, and every single day it seems a new village falls, and sometimes major villages. And Ukraine is not doing very well. Putin believes that Zelensky doesn't pay that much attention anymore to the front. Maybe he's left it to Sersky now, and I don't know. Sersky is probably pillaging the whole countryside, especially Odessa, trying to get mostly ethnic Russian people to go die in the meat grinder, as you all know. Yeah, they have a lot of women there too now, apparently. And like I had mentioned yesterday, one woman, she got away. You have to watch the video yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before. She never actually said anything verbally that she was against whatever is going on, but then she had her chance and she escaped. And she was an Olympic rower, so rowing, and now I believe she rows for Russia. I think she went from Poland into Belarus and Belarus into Russia, now being on the Russian national team. And so I think some might even be fighting for Russia that left their Ukrainian military. So it looks like they've been winning the hearts and minds of the Ukrainian people. Yeah. So, yeah, the realities on the ground, that is something that Zelensky, he seems like he knows a little bit more now than he did before, but he still is not acknowledging these things, fully. So he's still trying to hammer out a win, and then he tries to do this by consensus. He's going everywhere and to everyone, basically trying to, like a mob, get a mob on Donald Trump and to say, yeah, you got to give all of the concessions to Ukraine and make Russia pay with concessions. They have to give up this and give up that. So Zelensky, I guess so they had his call list written on one channel, and they even showed the time. So he was just on the phone calling all these leaders, and it was like, I don't know, 25 or 30 leaders. And then I think the next day he met with Rutte of NATO. And, these people are all supposedly going to bat for him. And Zelensky was in Ireland and, getting some standing applause from a whole bunch of people. It's probably not the regular people on the streets, of course, but, I believe they're trying to use, what do they call that then? Cognitive warfare. That means also using the media and trying to have everybody see that there's a lot of people clapping for Vladimir Zelensky, so he must be a good guy. So much this stuff going on, by consensus. A lot of people will follow the mob and, if so many people believe it, it must be true. So I don't know. I think I've been like that maybe when I was younger, but it's like starting to realize you think for yourself and you're a lot better off. Don't follow these crowds and especially now with AI, they can fake anything. They can make it look like there's millions of people in the vast crowds out there just clapping for you alone out there. And nobody actually may not know your name. Anyway, it's kind of like that Forrest Gump movie in a way, right? If you remember any of that. I think it was on a veteran speaking against the Vietnamese War or something like that. And he was out just looking for, what's her name? What's the girl's name? Anyway, the girl from Greenbow, Alabama. Anyway, forget that. So, but I think all in all, if you want to go by the facts on the ground and what is really going to come about with reality, Russia, of course, has the most powerful position. So, and Zelensky's not realizing the facts on the ground. So, all in all, Zelensky and a lot of these upper people in Ukraine and the European Union, they are not ready yet. They're not ready for this. They're not ready for the end of the war, and that's why they're not pushing the end of the war. And it's probably not going to happen. This is going to be ominous to say this. It's not even going to happen until Russia gets very close to Kiev, if not already at Kiev. And then maybe Zelensky is going to start to wake up. I had heard at one point in time, I think it was a year ago, that they're even establishing another capital in Lvov. Whether that is true or not, at least it hasn't happened yet. So we'll see. We'll see if that's going to happen. Yes. The ex-foreign minister, meanwhile, has come out. Remember Harry Potter? Remember the guy who looks like Harry Potter? Kuleba. He's probably got glasses kind of like me. I don't look like Harry Potter, luckily. Some people said John Denver, but not with this beard. I don't know. I kind of look like maybe Alexander Dugin, I'm wondering. If I get this a little longer. But Harry Potter Kuleba, he said the Ukrainians have to acknowledge a very, very hard truth. And he kind of was beating around the bush and never came right out and said exactly what. He didn't even mention names or nothing. He didn't mention the names of the countries, but he obviously made it very clear. he said, Ukraine lies before a tactical defeat, but not a strategic. I guess he's maybe saying a strategic victory. And you have to start to wonder, and you got to even go back to the dictionary and say, well, what's the difference? What's tactical and what is strategic? And I don't know that they're coming up with a strategic defeat and only losing a tactical defeat. But he said you have to like maybe think around these happy Instagram posts. And I think he's saying, I don't know, maybe was he saying that things will not change, or, but anyway, at least he's at least acknowledging the fact that it's not so good for Ukraine at the moment, and it looks like it was very ominous the way he was speaking. He says, but the strategic victory, because of the invasion, it was meant to destroy Ukraine. And he didn't say if it did or didn't, but it's not, he talks about the invasion, but it's, you guys all know that that's all kind of, sure, Russia did invade. There's no doubt about that, but he didn't say why. Why did Russia invade? And it certainly was not because Russia wanted to destroy Ukraine. It's actually for people. And you would think, because I've already said many times on this program that when the West goes to war, they go to war for resources, money, things like that, wealth, power. And Russia goes to war for people. And you would think a Ukrainian, and a lot of Ukrainians say that they are Russians, which they are. They were the first Russians, by the way. And that Russians, don't go to war for the things that he is actually alluding to. So it's not that Russia was trying to defeat Ukraine. They're actually trying to save the people. You guys all know that. I don't even have to say that. So Kuleba also discussed the same guy I talked about yesterday, because Mike Pompeo came out. So he was talking about Mike Pompeo, and that was in a separate interview. But as you know, Mike Pompeo is one of these people, sort of like Ted Cruz, that believes that America should fall on their knees to Israel. And there's a lot of them like that. Donald Trump is obviously a Zionist, but he's not such an extreme Zionist. He is a Zionist. That's like a Scientologist. But, he's not as extreme. Of course, in effect, he does most everything for Israel, everything Israel wants him to do. But, like Ted Cruz or Mike Pompeo, or so very, very many of them, Mike Huckabee, who luckily didn't become president. These people believe that that Israel are the masters of the universe, masters of the globe. And that, I don't know. I tell you, I can't really say so much about this on these videos because I don't know these people's mindset. I cannot believe that people can get into such a mindset. And I'm sure most of you are the same way. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult when you just cannot see. You cannot see like this Banderitism, this Nazism. And it's like, well, how do these people think this way? There's so many sick people. And I don't know if it was yesterday, or maybe I didn't even mention it, or I was seeing an article that it was maybe yesterday, and it's about very sick people, and it's like these big old global, I emphasize global groups of these people that are doing terrible things, and often some of the sickest things to infants and children and animals. And and I guess they got thousands of videos of such things like that. And then when you think of that, and then you think of Epstein, everybody thinks Epstein is kind of disgusting. All I know about Epstein is a lot of these girls were like, I don't know, they were mid-teens or something. And that's kind of like, that's very distasteful and all that. And it's like, and it's, in a way, it is sick, but these other people are far more sick. I guess I don't know. Do you draw a red line, or do you draw various red lines and somebody getting further and further and further back from the first red line? And like I said, I worked in a prison too, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned some of the things that some of these people that have done in there, and it's just like, it's just you. I don't know. Sometimes when you hear a lot of these things, and it'll stay with you. Like when you hear about some of those people in the prisons, what they did, you can't never forget it again, and it comes back in your mind that some people did some of these things, and it's. Anyway, that's not what I was going to be talking about. It's just terrible stuff, you know? Well, so Kuleba, Harry Potter, he disclosed that Pompeo is also, I guess you could say he's invested in Ukraine. Pompeo sits on the board of a major weapons manufacturing company or a conglomerate in Ukraine. So it's very strange. It's bad enough, you know, you talk about some other people, but Mike Pompeo even, and I don't know, these people that are pledged their loyalty to different countries, and then they're firmly involved in this, like Kellogg. This Kellogg, who was some kind of a negotiator for Donald Trump, and he is his daughter's involved in Ukraine in investments and makes money there. So it's I don't know. And I guess Pompeo is linked to the corruption of Yermak as well. And now they're finding certain EU officials. So that right now over here in this side of the world, they're talking about it, about this EU corruption now. And so this gives a new name for the EU corruption. And I think a lot of this was exposed, of course, through these people that they're rounding up a little bit in Ukraine. And it's absolutely amazing that they're actually disclosing these names. And some people whose names I think, what was her name? Morgani or whatever, some EU official. I know I heard her name. You know, they hauled her in, I guess, questions her, and I guess they let her go. But then there was some other secondary management type guy, and they hauled him, and they haven't released him. So I guess maybe they found more. And the girl, this Margani or whatever, she was able to, I guess, talk her way out of it. Some people, you know, and a lot of time you've got to bring a lawyer. A lot of time it's terrible because you got to have money. And if a lot of, like, I know how that is. You don't have money, and even if you're innocent, you're going to lose. And if you have money and you're guilty and you have a lawyer, you can get out of it. And I've seen it before. You see some amazing things, you know, and sometimes when people are guilty, they get even a much lighter sentence. Like I said, I worked in a prison. I just said that. And there was a guy in there. He had special privileges. He had a special chair. No other inmate had any of that stuff. And I guess he was very manipulative, even with the correctional officers. But he wasn't in my unit, luckily. I started working in some other prison just for a short time, and it's a strange thing that I saw that guy in that prison. And I was not, I was actually what they call intermediate. I did not have a set post at that time. So, and that was closer to where I grew up, that prison. And I saw even, there's people there that I knew growing up, you know, murder their girlfriend, stab them 16 times and all that. I knew a few guys like that, of course, before they did that. And but I don't know, a lot of things, you know, you got a lot of stuff in your past life, probably a lot of you as well. You remember a lot of things and crazy people. So, but anyway, don't worry. Some EU officials, you know, they'll probably go down to, I don't know. And I don't know if they can run to Israel like a lot of them from Ukraine. Those that went to Israel from Ukraine, I guess they can't question them. So these guys got away. Some of them either were too slow or I don't know. Maybe they didn't let them go. And I bet a lot of them, they let them go to Israel. So those guys got away. And some of them very high up, very, very close. Yermak, that's strange. I think he was busy when they raided his home. Probably nobody thought that he would do it because he's actually Zelensky's right-hand man for a lot of time. That's pretty. You could say the guy was the vice president. Anyway. But Putin was saying, you know, that he didn't say it, but obviously the EU is not involved in the peace process. And they are nevertheless trying to prevent that Russia, well, they're trying to prevent the peace product. Russia, wait. I think, what was he saying? Putin was saying that, that the EU is not involved in that peace process, and that they're trying to scuttle the peace process. And Putin said yesterday on video, he said, well, he's fine with that too. They can scuttle the peace process. They can scuttle the whole thing, and then they can settle the realities on the ground instead. So Russia, I think Putin has said a few times, at least Russia definitely has, they said they can handle it either way. They can go through negotiations, and if they don't want to, negotiate, then Russia will settle it on the ground. So, and you know how it is in the West. I mean, you guys, and I remember growing up, I was in the Cold War, I was in the army and all that, and everything that Russia did was a trick, is what they were telling us. And I don't know, at times it might have been. I don't remember. But anyway, that's what we were made to believe. And since I've been over here, and then you're watching after the government's over here. As a matter of fact, I even knew this before I came over here to Belarus. And you start to watch how Russia does things, how they say things, Belarus, all of this. And they're not playing any friggin' games and any deceptions. Now, the U.S. and the West in general, they're always doing that. I guess it's part of, either playing chess or playing poker. And they do a lot of bluffing in the West. So they say something, and it's supposed to make you go this way, and they're going to go that way. Donald Trump, of course, does that very much. So I don't know if Donald Trump does it. Maybe it's his mental condition. I have no idea. Or is he got some kind of a plot? Or, like as you all see, he goes from one thing to the next, to the opposite, to the next one, and back and forth. Oftentimes, a lot of people are saying it depends on who talks to him last. And everybody knows, every leader on the planet knows that with Donald Trump, you have to feather his ego. So he doesn't really want to talk to you, and you're not going to get anywhere unless you feather his ego and tell him he's the greatest that has ever existed or something, I guess. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, a lot of us say that on YouTube, and a lot of us are also saying, and it's very much like Brian Berletic was saying, and I said that yesterday on a video, that the West in general, and I tell you, Brian Berletic would tell you that particularly the U.S., but I would say just also the U.S., because Donald Trump has various plans, and I guess he's looking for whatever one works out the best, at that time. He'll go with the peace plan if it looks like Russia. And I think that's exactly what he's doing. That's what Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, I guess, for the most part, discovered yesterday, that, Russia's not taking the bait. So what's going to happen is they have to keep going on with the same thing. And, they have to go basically with Russia's plan. And, everybody's saying that, oh, you're a traitor, that Donald Trump is a traitor. But if he doesn't go along with Russia's plan, the war is going to keep going. What do they want Trump to do? Do they want him to drop nuclear bombs on Moscow? Do they want to try to do something like that? I don't know. It's kind of like you step back and you think, how stupid are people anyway? Donald Trump, he's the man in the hot seat. He's the president. So he's got to do what he's got to do. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, he's got to do what he has to do in that position. And who was it? I think it was, it was John Bolton. I'll get to him in a minute. But he believes that the U.S. Security interests are better served when the war continues. As long as the war continues, that the security interests of the United States are better off. It's and that the United States should be the one supplying all the weapons, should just keep on, just like Donald Trump was saying just a few months ago, sell all these weapons to the EU, and EU can get them to Ukraine, which doesn't have any money either. And I don't know. I don't even know. I don't think Europe has the money to give to Donald Trump. And I think maybe that is one big reason why Donald Trump is kind of fed up with that plan of selling the weapons to Europe. I don't know how many did he get to Europe already? Europe just doesn't have the money. So it's not going to work that way. I guess what they were hoping for, everybody's hoping to rope in the United States. That's Zelensky's big dream, is to get the United States on his side. And he thinks even that he can administer or open up a can of whoop ass on Russia. And I don't think that's going to happen, you know. Russia's not going to fight the United States in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, over there. I talk about in the United States or Canada or anywhere over there on the Americas. And I think that Donald Trump has enough sense. I hope he has enough sense. As a matter of fact, I'm sure he does, because he has never showed any moves to want to go to war against Russia in Russia's backyard. United States has a much bigger military, but can you imagine the nightmare of logistics or whatever else it takes to be waging a war on Russia in that way? And I think a lot of people have made it very clear to Donald Trump about the history of Russia, and for that only one little short time when a traitor came in, well, kind of a traitor, he was actually a foreign agent with Vladimir Lenin. Russia really does not lose wars, so and they just keep on fighting, even when it looks like they've about lost. They still don't lose. They don't stop. So I think, yeah, Donald Trump, I think he even said that. And you get the grandmothers out there. I mean, you even see that with Ukraine. Ukraine has a far smaller force, even though NATO fed them to the gills with all kinds of NATO weapons and everything. But and they fought very well. Everybody says that for that kind of a military. And but Russia is much bigger. And I think Russia, most people actually know what the whole game plan of the United States and the European Union is by now, and that's going to make them fight even harder. So I don't think you really want to pick a fight with Russia. I don't think you do. So that is my advice. And I think Donald Trump, should know that right now. So, yeah. So, yeah, anyway, this big pause, it's supposed to be a Minsk 3. That's what the whole idea of, for the most part, Europe is to put it on pause. And thinking Russia's going to be so stupid again to go to Minsk 3 and let them rearm, retrain, and then send their own troops in there and get ready for a much, much bigger and a much more bloody war. And I tell you what, if any war like that ever would happen, when you're going to have a lot of European soldiers, I mean, I'm talking about Western European soldiers on Ukrainian ground, it's going to be a much different war than what Russia is fighting against Ukraine right now. And Russia has said that on occasion. As a matter of fact, I think they even said that yesterday or today, that if they want to get a war, if these European idiots want to go to war with Russia, it's not going to be the same type of war that Russia is fighting in Ukraine. They're going to open up the floodgates, and it's going to be a much, much different thing. They're going to start then. Right now, I think it was Vladimir Putin that said that they're doing it surgically right now in Ukraine because they consider the Ukrainians their own people. But they don't consider, not even the Poles. I don't think they consider even the Poles their own people, even if they're Slavic peoples. And they certainly don't feel that way about the Germans or the French, and especially the British. The British are the ones that have always been stabbing Russia in the back. They stab Russia in the back every single chance they get. So it's going to be Great Britain that would suffer the worst, I would imagine. I don't know why Hitler was so, fed up about the British. Maybe the British are duplicitous people. I don't know the faintest idea in government. I like British people, so I can't say that. But I don't know how it is on the government level. It could be very much different. Just like Israel. Well, there's a lot of terrible people in Israel too, but I think, maybe you get like 40%. I'm hoping 40% at least are very decent people in Israel. So I always live in hope. I don't have the attitude like Brian Berletic and, some other people. And anyway, so, okay. Anyway. So another thing Putin said is that if this piracy of, Great Britain is mostly, there we go, Great Britain again, is mostly at fault for all of this piracy, and they're hitting these oil tankers, anything that has anything to do with Russia. And I guess I believe the first two, they were flagged under an African country. What is this? Bissau, I can't remember the name, Guinea-Bissau or whatever, some smaller African country. And Russia said yesterday, it might have been even early this morning, that they're Chinese, or maybe that I think maybe the oil is bound for China, but I thought most of it went through pipelines. Anyway, but and it was in Turkish waters. So Erdogan, I said yesterday, is very, very pissed off, and probably China is very pissed off. Russia is pissed off. So yeah, so Russia is pissed off. Russia, I think it was Vladimir Putin warned them what he is considering, he's considering to do if they continue this, what he calls piracy, by droning and maybe trying to sink these ships. He said he's going to consider cutting off Ukraine's access to the sea. And I don't know exactly what that means. To me, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like, and a lot of people believe, this is going to sound incredible. A lot of people have been saying, and a lot of Russians actually want, they want Russia to take Odessa. And it's, Colonel McGregor says it all the time. I think maybe Scott Ritter says it all the time, because that's a Russian city. It's a very famous Russian city. It's not a Ukrainian city. The people there don't consider themselves Ukrainian. They don't want to be Ukrainian. Maybe there are some that do now, but you know, they're trying to empty, the Ukrainian authorities are trying to empty the city and try to find all the men that are of ethnic Russian background and send them to the front to die in the meat grinders. So, but when Putin says he's considering cutting off Ukraine's access to the sea, that means Odessa. I do not know if he means that he is going to blockade it, a naval blockade, but you also have to remember that the British are heavily, heavily there. There's a lot of British in Odessa. That is where their base is at. That's where they do their operations inside of Russia, and it's all based in Odessa. And the Russians know this, and all of these attacks on the water, you know, they're all run out of Odessa. So you never know. But if cutting them off, I don't know. It would be a very, very big operation if Russia tried to take Odessa. So, and they would have to be probably mobilizing more people. I don't know if they could possibly do that. I mean, the surgical way that they do it right now. And why would Russia? They certainly would have to go surgical. They don't want to kill any of those people. They don't want to kill even the people that are not ethnic Russians, because they still consider them as their own people. But to be bombing Odessa into any areas that could hurt civilians, I don't think that, since Russia actually cares about people, especially their own people, they don't want to bomb and kill innocent people. It's not like the United States or some of these other countries. Like, you see Macron and all these people, they're really anxious to go to war with Russia. They're really wanting to see their people get killed there. And these Western leaders, they care about their wealth, and they care about their wealth and their privilege. They care very little about their people. And you see, like, Merz is a globalist. He worked for BlackRock. He was BlackRock's top man in Germany. And he'll be just as comfortable going somewhere else as he is in Germany, because he's got a lot of money. You can't work for BlackRock at the level and doing what he does for BlackRock and not be really, really rich. I'd like to see another investigation, if it could be possible, to see Pandora Papers and the Panama Papers and find out how much Merz has. Of course, he doesn't have like Zelensky. Like, Zelensky probably is the richest leader in the world by far. I remember they were hinting at him having $10 billion, and that was well over a year ago. It makes you wonder what Zelensky really does have by now. It's, you know. And I think as the time draws near and things get worse for Ukraine, I think he's increased his paycheck a little bit. So I don't know. We have to find out. But we never will, probably. Some people say very soon Zelensky is going to somehow be eliminated. Who was that? I think it was Colonel Wilkerson in the United States. He was on some podcast. I don't really know, but I sort of think that he is going to be able to escape and live on his golden parachute, but I don't know seriously if they're going to let it be that large. I don't know if anybody can confiscate that. And you would think that the Ukrainian people, and if you want to talk about reparations, I mean, there you go, right there. You can take maybe 10 billion of his, whatever he has, 20 or 30 billion. Maybe he has 100 billion by now. I don't know. Who knows how much Zelensky has by now? I would even venture to guess, that it's definitely over 50 billion. You got to think of at least over 100 billion they say was stolen that they know of, and how much more, and how much did they make on the illegal organ trade and the drug trade and the weapons trade. That is not even considered into all of that corruption money of somewhere between 54 to 106 billion dollars that they know of that was filtered off. That's not what was given to Ukraine. I guess from the U.S. alone, the chief economists that have been tallying all this up, and that's what Donald Trump, I guess, went by. They know that they said that the number is $360 billion that they shaved from the American taxpayers to get this so-called war going. And of course, most of that probably didn't even go to the war. It went to many different pockets. So, and like I said, somebody was saying up to $106 billion, but there's a lot of other money involved besides that. And then they have a lot of these, I call these call centers, as you know, and there's a lot of warnings. I've mentioned it many times here on this channel that they warn you in the bus and on the metro. They have these announcements coming out, and it talks to you about these calls that you're going to get. And some people, matter of fact, they even have YouTubers and people, I think, on TikTok, and they act like they're old people when they have these scammers calling them. And, they want their information, and information on their passports and all that. And there's even been, I think, a movie. I don't know if it was Hugh Jackman or something like that. It wasn't about Ukraine, but it was about these call centers and these people, and they empty out your bank account. And if you have 20,000 or your life savings, maybe for some older person, that worked all their life and, it's got money from their grandchildren and all, and they have, maybe they're 70 years old, and or maybe they only have 5,000. They'll steal all of it. Or even wealthier people that have 50,000, and you get a big bonus. I think if you get over a certain amount, if you're able to find somebody and rip them off over, I don't know, $100,000, I think you get a bonus or something when you're working at these call centers to steal the money from people on telephones. Mostly Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine itself. So they rob their own people as well down there. There's so much corruption, so much. Drugs and anyway. Okay. So what else? Let's see about the piracy. I, a pirate. Yeah. And he also said, Putin, he said that he will consider cutting them off from the sea, and he'll also take actions against ships belonging to countries. This is a consideration. I'm not saying he's doing this, but if this continues, he said he will consider taking actions against ships belonging to countries that are helping Ukraine in this piracy. Look out, UK, look out, Britain, Somebody is finally going to hold you to account for all of the mischief that you've always been doing. The UK is actually very good in sabotage there. They've been, you can probably see movies based on the World War II and all that when they, blew up things and infiltrated this and all that. Israelis, that's probably where the Israelis got their things, but I think the Israelis, of course, they're the big ones on assassinations. And the French are very good in certain, because I remember when I was in the military and our Delta guys would tell me that at that time, that was, when was that? Got to go back. Oh, that wasn't, no, that was in the 90s. That was in the 90s. I was thinking the 80s, but in the 90s, even the French, like with their commandos and a lot of their things, they won a lot of the competitions, believe it or not. The French for all people, I mean, you would think the British or the Americans. No, the French were normally the ones that won most of the time for a lot of these special ops sort of things. But it was not real life. It was just like a training exercise and test. So, and that's how that was. So that's the guys told me that anyway. I wasn't in this unit. It was a company. It was a Delta company, and they had like 50 people. You know, it's the size of a kind of a big platoon. You know, actually no, that's a regular platoon. A platoon is like 40 or 50 people, and their whole company had like 50 or 53. And things like that. I did some physical fitness training with those guys. You know, the first sergeant really loved me because I could beat most all of his men. You know, these Delta guys. So it was fun, but I couldn't get in there anyway. I have not such great eyesight. Anyway, I'm glad I didn't go. A lot of these guys, you know, you get on these missions, and you get locked up, and you don't get to see wife or family or anything, and they kind of tell you don't get very much notice and say, oh, on a mission, and then you're gone, and you can't talk to them, and you don't see them again until the mission is actually done. And that's, you know, go in and assassinate somebody or something like that. Normally that's what it's all about, you know, spying on people and, you know, all that kind of fun stuff. So, another country on the Black Sea, Bulgaria, is experiencing mass protests because of corruption. How we can't get away from this topic, can we? And they want the government to resign. And I remember when I was in Bulgaria, it was they had this deal. It was strange. Now this is a little corruption a little bit down lower. So what they would do is if they saw cars that were people would lie. I don't know who, but anyway. But the police worked with car thieves, and they would steal cars. And the police would act like they're, you know, trying to find out, but they're the ones that would. The police would tell these people where the cars are at, you know, which cars and where they're at and where they're parked at and all that. And then these people would steal them, and the police would just look the other way, and then they get a kickback from it. And there's other things that went like that also in Bulgaria. So it's kind of an interesting place. And the United States was big. Into, I think I remember Colin Powell, who I met. I told you I worked for him on a few occasions there. His driver, when his driver went on like leave, his driver's name was Otis. Very easy to remember because my boss, the 4-star general, was General Otis. You can look that up. Look up General Otis on Wikipedia or something if you want. Glenn K. Otis, I believe his name was. And but anyway, when Colin Powell, who was he was the commanding general of 5th Corps in Frankfurt at the Abrams complex in the Abrams building, impressive building too. That was a big fortified building. It was pretty impressive stuff there. But anyway, I would drive Colin Powell on some occasions on that sort of a deal, like when the Secretary of Defense came over and stuff. You know, so I drove with him and, you know, the Secretary of Defense and Colin Powell to where the Secretary of Defense was staying in a hotel in Rhein-Main Air Base, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Actually, I'm not supposed to talk about that stuff. I was told I had to sign a document to say I'll never talk about this stuff. But I just did. Sorry about that. The U.S. government going to put a hit on me? Oh, any big deal. So what? Anyway. So there's corruption. How did I get to that topic of corruption? No, Colin Powell. That's what I was saying. Colin Powell, when he was Secretary of State, and I think Richard Armitage, who I worked for him too. Richard Armitage, who used to be a Navy SEAL, he talks like this. And I think he was Assistant Secretary of State at the time. I remember they did a visit to Bulgaria at that time, and that is they were bringing in, strangely enough, genetically modified crops and corn and all that, which really did terrible damage to the biodiversity of crops and things like that in Bulgaria. I just had to throw that in, you know, being a farmer myself. So they kind of screwed the place up, you know, but Bulgaria, I don't know. They probably offered a lot of money to people, and I don't know. Like I said, I don't know anything about the government of Bulgaria, so I don't know what the motivation was. So recently, Putin even echoed something I have been mentioning about the Western, particularly U.S. tactics. And remember, I called something the Harding-Kerrigan approach. You know, Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. in the Olympics. You have to see some of my other videos. I don't want to go through it all again. Don't want to keep boring everybody saying the same thing. It's, those girls that were ice skating and one hit the other one in the leg with an iron bar so that take the other one out of competition, which maybe that shoes them in to go to the Olympics. And so Putin, his quote, I'll quote, you can see the Harding-Kerrigan effect in that. He said, global turbulence stems from the non-competitive tactics of certain Western countries seeking to eliminate rivals and preserve their fading monopoly. Very well said. I said that in different ways also on other occasions. So the United States, instead of getting better themselves, they try to take out the competition in the other countries. Sure, there is some scientific breakthroughs coming through and all that, but you see that there's a lot of things to compete or maybe even do much better than what the United States is doing with, say, robotics and drones and AI maybe or something. The Chinese are really, 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 they're taking over everything in technology massively. Absolutely massively. The United States is definitely behind. Russia is leading the way in a lot of military technology, hypersonic missiles and tanks and everything. They're much better, the ones in Russia, than the American ones. Americans, they do have some good things. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people, like I said, this Minuteman III, that is actually a fast missile. A lot of people are trying to make excuses. Oh, no, it's not. And sure, it's like maybe the third fastest. The fastest is, of course, what Russia has and China has. The Dongfang and, and the Minuteman III is in third place. Hey, that's easy to remember. Minuteman III in third place. So as far as speed, but the one thing is, I think, the Americans, they had the Pershing missile, and it was maneuverable in flight. It wasn't really that fast. I think it maybe was like would you say Mach 1 or something? It was like once or twice the speed of sound, and they had that. Matter of fact, and that's another thing. I knew the general who was in charge of the Pershing missiles. I don't want to say his name. Anyway, liked him. It was just a brigadier general stationed in Bremerhaven, Germany, up in the north of Germany, much far away from the American sector. And I worked out of Heidelberg, which was the headquarters of the American sector. Obviously when you work for the commanding general. But this guy, he would come down and see Mr. General Otis, and I would pick him up at the airport and all that. And he was a very nice guy, very calm and everything. And but anyway, the Pershing is actually maneuverable, and I don't think the Minuteman III is maneuverable. So that is something that at least Russia has much better, and they're far better. They're far more in advance. The Russian missiles are much better than the American ones. There's no doubt about it. Russia leads in a lot of things in defense. And I'll tell you what, Russia can also increase output. I would not be messing with Russia. And it kind of makes you wonder. Right in front of Russia's face, the European Union, they think these idiots, these NATO countries, they think they can threaten Russia. I just can't believe it. I already talked about this. I don't want to keep going on this. I don't know. I don't know where their brains are at, those people. So yesterday, there was a fact come out. Jared Kushner, believe it or not, he's kind of more pro-Ukraine than he is, of course, pro-Russia. I would say Witkoff likes the Russians a little bit better. I'm not saying that they're going to bias any kind of negotiations in favor of one country or the next. They know that Russia is leading, and even Jared Kushner, of course, knows that. But I think he likes maybe Ukraine. He's fallen into the propaganda stuff and like Slava Ukraina and Zelensky and all that. But it's really strange that it might be because Ukraine is pro-Israel. They work together, Israel and Ukraine. They're buddies, partners in crime, as I said. And they're linked by ideology. Even if one you call Zionism, Zio-Nazis, and the other one you call Bandera Nazis. But they're very similar in ideology, just people are different. Just the people that run the thing are a little bit different. So it makes you wonder, it's a little bit ironic because Jared Kushner, his grandparents escaped Ukrainian Nazis in World War II, his grandparents. and they think they were going to be put in some sort of a prison camp or something, which they would have been lucky that they didn't get killed. To be honest with you, they normally just slaughtered all the Belarusians. There was always Germans there, and but they would just. There was some that they would definitely they would leave them and all, but they would slaughter lots of them. They would go in entire villages, 200 villages. They wiped them out, killed every single person in over 200 towns in Belarus. It's far worse than whatever happened in Poland, even though you always hear Poland, 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 and whatever. But it was much worse in Belarus. It was a genocide. It was undeniably a genocide. There's books written about it, by the way. So anyway, but they escaped, and then they were helping Jewish people when they joined a partisan group. It's very possible that they could have even walked on the same ground that I've been walking on here in this area. There's a big partisan area here, the forests and things. And when I go to these forests that I show you, which is at Partizansky district. So it's very possible that that's the case, but it's very strange he would go on the side of Ukrainian Nazis. It's just really strange. And I just say only it's because maybe he thinks that, I don't know, wrongly. I don't know, what does I say? It's a very strange phenomena. I mentioned that, and I even forgot what I said or something. It's just because I can't get it through my head that Nazis and Jews align together in Ukraine big time. And even though the Nazis say they hate the Jews, they're buddies with them. It doesn't make sense, but that's how it is. It's a sort of a cognitive dissonance. That's exactly what the meaning of that word is, you know. It's like being hypnotized right in front of your eyes, you know, while you're awake. That's what cognitive dissonance, in my opinion, means. You're hypnotized while you're not even, you know, you're not even under a spell. So somebody can convince you of something, like you're looking at a blue sky and they can tell you that it's red, that it's actually red. I knew very good con artists that could convince you of a lot of things, but I don't know. I guess you got to be really good. I'm not good at that anyway. So I still sold coffee pretty good, but I didn't go personally and try to sell coffee to people. My coffee sold itself, and I was very lucky about that. I had a good product. If it was me, that nobody would have bought anything. It's incredible. I can't sell a hammer to a carpenter. So anyway, John Bolton. I wanted to talk about John Bolton. He was interviewed yesterday, and he was advising all Republicans to oppose Donald Trump's Ukraine plan. Oh, and his brilliance, you know, John Bolton's brilliance. He says Trump is not looking out for America, and only because he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. And there's certainly, Donald Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. But that prize was already given, and it's already passed, and he's still trying to get peace. It's Donald Trump. And he says one important thing that is very true. But so Bolton does know Trump, but his analysis is just very faulty. It's not that he only wants a peace prize. Donald Trump wants other things too. And he said he wants to declare success. And I keep saying that. That's what drives Donald Trump, is success. He wants everybody to worship him. And that's more important to Donald Trump even than a peace prize. The peace prize is only a means to getting people to worship him. But success is what Donald Trump wants. And if he doesn't get success, he lies about it if he has to. So this same thing is going to keep driving him to try to really actually want to end this war. And I think, Putin's going to win. Obviously, he's going to get what he wants. But the problem is that Ukraine is not going to really stop. And Trump will continue in a lot of ways to support Ukraine. I don't know if he's ever going to cut it off completely. He just said, I guess yesterday, that he's not sending any money anymore to Ukraine, but he actually is in ways, and it's known that he is, but in different ways. It costs money to give Ukraine intelligence, which is what he continues to do. That's just one example there. But anyway, Bolton wants the United States to continue to send even more money and weapons to Ukraine. He said, for peace and security in Europe. So war brings peace. So it sounds kind. You ever heard of this guy? What's this guy's name? This Orwell guy? War is Peace? It's John Bolton. He could have wrote the book, I suppose. So war means peace and security for Europe. Yeah, right. Especially when you go against, there's nuclear armed nations here. And when and France is really itching to get in, as we all know. Macron is trying to find some excuse to send more troops in there. He already lost a lot of troops. Russia bombed, and it's a known fact, they bombed a lot of French troops already. And even if some publications might say that these are mercenaries, I've been with these people, and they're not mercenaries. A lot of time they'll lose their status temporarily when they go to into some sort of a confrontation, and they won't be carrying their military ID cards with them, and so these are special forces French people, and they're not mercenaries. And anyway, and Russia took them out. That was, I don't know, maybe a year ago. That was even in the Donbass, by the way. So I mentioned it. I think I just mentioned it yesterday. So I don't want to keep repeating this stuff. You guys have to watch more of my videos if you're new here. So, yeah, war is peace, when it comes to Russia, at least. Well, there was another note. I just saw this chronologically when I was looking at some news about the Honduras election. This is about Trump. So it's not been decided yet. All kinds of strange things. Every day you hear something different, but the election in Honduras is not decided yet, and Trump is really, really watching it. It doesn't border Venezuela or anything. I don't really know. Honduras, I guess they have some links, and of course they have some sort of relationship, obviously, with Venezuela and Nicaragua and all that. But anyway, that's the election that took place just a day or two ago, and Trump is threatening. Literally, he's threatening on Truth Social. If they try to change the results, there will be hell to pay. That's what Donald Trump's words are. What happened if Russia would do something like that? Go to some... But that's not meddling in elections, is it? No. And basically what he's saying then, if my guy does not win, you're going to get some either heavy sanctions, or we're going to invade you or do something very nasty to you. My guy has to win. So... But that's not meddling in an election, is it? Wow. Can you imagine that? And nobody's calling it out. Nobody's saying, well, election meddling. They will maybe in a year or two, but some people should be saying something right now. But nobody is. Everybody's scared. Donald Trump, I think a lot of people think that Donald Trump is unhinged, and for a large extent he actually is. So, and like I've been saying in a couple other videos, I think a lot of people are going to breathe a sigh of relief when Donald Trump is gone. And I'm not saying Donald Trump is worse than Biden, but I don't know. Are you ever going to get a sensible president? Although a lot of the foreign policy will never change. It's always going to be as aggressive as it is, but just maybe in different ways. But something like this little minor vote, I don't think that Biden would have messed around with it. So, and maybe that's what Donald Trump would say. That's his fault, and that's why things are bad now, because we're supposed to meddle in elections and bully everybody around and make them do what we want them to do. So be the masters and the controllers, and one ring to bind them all, I guess. Anyway, so there was a Luxembourg member of the European Parliament. His name is Ferdinand Kartheiser, and he came out and he said yesterday that the main reason that the EU is seeking to, this is interesting, this is very, very, very interesting, and I would think it definitely has something to do with this. I don't know if it is the main reason. I don't know if this guy was saying it was the main reason, but he said that the reason why the EU is seeking to prolong the war and rush Ukraine into the EU as a result is to advance the political integration of course, Ukraine, and transform the EU into a military alliance. And that fits. It fits that, there's a little bit more to say about that. But that is incredible, thinking about this. Seeing that they hate Russia, that's obvious. Very much. It's, as we all know, the Hate Russia Club. and they're all the big members of there. And Trump has kind of got one foot in and one foot out, kind of. He doesn't know if he wants to, retain his membership in the Hate Russia Club. But they are feverishly expanding their militaries. And there's something else that just happened today, just before this video, that also corroborates that thought. So, and you have to also consider Ursula von der Leyen. She was, I would say, the failed defense minister of Germany at one time. They put a lady in there afterwards, and she had to resign very quickly. The military of Germany was such a terrible, terrible mess. She had really messed it up, Ursula von der Leyen. She's a very good speaker, and I guess she's somehow convincing, I guess, to a lot of people. I guess you have to have the right mindset, and you have to, I don't know, if you believe the crap that comes out of her mouth, which, like taking the computer chips out of washing machines to make bombs, like she said that Russia was doing, and things like that. But, yeah, but they don't like Trump's attitude right now to what's going on in Ukraine. And these people, like I said, they're incredibly stupid. There's nuclear weapons here involved in Ukraine. These people are guided. They're guided by a friggin' ideology, and they have no loyalty whatsoever to anybody. These Banderites, these Nazis, they don't have any loyalty even to the European Union when their use has served itself. And I don't want to see this happen, but if this really does happen, the way this European Union is, according to this Ferdinand, was it Kaiser, if it actually happens that way, by changing the EU into a military alliance, and obviously to go against Russia. Well, who will have the biggest military in this military alliance? So, Ursula von der Leyen has been coming out with a lot of things already, hinting very strongly that she is trying to do this. And I believe that this member of Parliament, European Parliament from Luxembourg, really has a point here. And I think it's undeniable that this is part of the agenda. And maybe it is the whole agenda. But yeah, like I said, they don't like Trump's attitude, and obviously they do not like, at this point in time, the United States, Trump, his control in NATO. And remember, they just had some big hate meeting or something in just a day or so ago, and Rubio didn't go. So it was a bunch of, NATO people of how they're going to support Ukraine. And Marco Rubio didn't go. It's very obvious that the United States, Trump doesn't want to be stuck with a loser. And they're going to lose against Russia. So he's bowing out of this. So he can say, I don't have anything to do with this. And so he's doing it. And he's doing, that's actually pretty wise. And I think Europe should have gone a different route. But of course they didn't. In any case, they don't want Serbia in this alliance. That was, I guess, put out. This guy knows this. He knows these facts. They don't want Serbia, and they don't want Cyprus. So that tells you something right there. If there's, and of course, I always say there's NATO think tanks, and some of the people that run these think tanks, they hate Belarus and they hate Serbia. Those are the most hated countries in Europe to them. That's Gunter Fehlinger, the economist, not Austrian economist, but he's an economist from Austria, and he is the one in charge of the expansion of NATO and to split up Russia he's got it into 30 or 40 countries. You can look up his name, Gunter Fehlinger, on the internet. That's for some of you new people that are on this channel. And you'll see all of the different borders and even all the flags of all of these different republics that he's trying to create out of the country of Russia. So, and you can find tweets maybe online, and he says that, how he hates Belarus. That's his most hated country, and in second place is Serbia. So, just so you know. And that's why they're not, of course, Belarus is not going to be invited into that European group ever at any time. So this guy, he says that the EU plans to force federalization of the members, and they're not going to have any say in this. So this is going to kind of like be a dictatorial thing. It's very much like how the European Union actually works nowadays anyway. So, wonder what they're going to call it. The Federation of the Nazi Countries of Europe. So, anyway, I suspected this. I was talking about this before. I only mentioned it one time because I was saying, well, maybe I'm going a little bit too far. I was thinking they're going to, and they've been talking anyway about their own European military. So, and I'm thinking, well, why do they need that? Because they got the EU. And I was always thinking that NATO actually serves as the European military, because they have members from all of these countries. They all have soldiers in NATO. So why do they need another military? So are they going to be different soldiers? Are the same soldiers serving in two armies, or in the NATO and the national? I don't know. So obviously, what they're going to try to do is they want an EU army, and Ursula has, she likes power, and they believe they're going to be able to, fast track Ukraine into the European Union, and then also fast track Ukraine into this military, obviously. And Ukraine will be far and away the largest military. And what they don't realize is that they're dealing with Nazis, and these Nazis will want to take over the power of whatever power that the European Union has. And they're going to be basically demanding that all of these countries send huge amounts of money to Ukraine. And it's going to be just like it was in the Soviet Union and after the Soviet Union, that money that goes into Ukraine, it's like a big black hole with a fire underneath it, and all that money is gone. It is gone. And you have, like Donald Trump Jr. said when he was in Monaco, he said that half of the cars, something like about half of the cars that are running around are super Bugatti and all of these Italian luxury speedsters and all that, all over in Monte Carlo, and they all have Ukrainian license plates. And Diane Panchenko, she is a Pulitzer Prize winning, award-winning journalist that's from Ukraine, and I guess she's exiled. She's kicked out of Ukraine, and she puts out that the most Rolls-Royce that are ordered in the world go to Ukraine. So they have far and away, they order more Rolls-Royce than any other country in the world. And there's a lot more things you could say, Rolex watches and things like that. I wonder how they, and Donald Trump Jr. said, I've been to Ukraine, and it's not a rich country. I think that's a good voice over there for him. And yeah, they're not a rich country. You see these houses and stuff, out in the countryside. A lot of those people don't have any money. The other ones, they're living maybe in apartments. I live in an apartment. It costs more to live in an apartment in a city over in this part of the world than it does to have a house, which that will surprise a lot of you, but I can explain that why, and I have in other videos, but it's not, I'm already over an hour. But anyway, this is, makes you wonder, well, how did all these rich Ukrainians come about? Yeah. And I think I might have told you guys, I was in Alicante, Spain once. I went down there for a job interview, and they flew me down there, and then there was a guy he said he was Russian. I think he was Ukrainian, actually. And he was 20 years old, and he had a yacht and a villa. And people asked him, how did you get all your money? He's 20 years old, by the way. And he said, I worked hard all my life. So anyway, you see a lot of strange things in your days anyway. So so they're going to have a new, improved EU with Ukraine leading the way. So as long as it takes, I guess. Slava Ukraina. Glory to the Ukrainians or something, whatever that means. Okay. Today was supposed to be the day the EU steals the Russian assets, by the way, and pass off most of it to Ukraine while they pocket a lot of it. And again, Belgium blocked it, at I think it was only like an hour or so before it was supposed to take effect, and Belgium blocked it. Wow. Cutting it very close. So anyway. And did I say already Trump, he said something else about Honduras yesterday. He said if you, catch this one, if you keep what's going on in Venezuela in mind when I tell you this, he said, if you have some drug dealers in your country and you're the president, you don't necessarily put the president in jail for 45 years. No, you overthrow the president. You bomb him. That's what Donald Trump's message would be. So he's forgetting what he's doing in Ukraine. I mean, in Venezuela, when he's sticking up for Honduras, you know. And like a lot of people keep saying, and you see these reports all over the place, this De La Sol or something, this so-called drug, cartel that Maduro is supposed to control. Everybody is saying it doesn't exist. And I think there was a report, and I'm not sure if that was from the Gray Zone, but anyway, there was and I think it was in Colombia, and I think it was a special police force called something like De La Sol, and they were fighting against the drug dealers. So anyway, and I think Marco Rubio even knows a lot about this kind of stuff, but they made up a fake drug cartel and said Maduro is the one in charge of it. So, and a lot of people, more and more people are finding out about this. So this is very obvious. Everybody knows it's about getting the resources, particularly the oil of Venezuela, and nothing else. It's very sad anyway. And of course, the breaking news, and this is what I'll end with. Rutte, just like maybe an hour ago, they had a big news conference, all these microphones around this guy. I don't know if this was based, did they meet again in Ramstein Air Base near Kaiserslautern? I've been there, of course, too, quite a few times. As a matter of fact, nearby there is where the United States has their big secret headquarters. Yes, I've been there too. I didn't get to go inside, but anyway, and it's just like this thing in Colorado, where it's a huge rock, and they bored right into this rock in a very deep cave, and you can drive big trucks into this cave. I'm talking about big 5-ton trucks into this Army 5-ton trucks, which are bigger than the civilian ones, and yeah, I'll tell you what, I was only allowed to get, I think, 50 meters, and here I had a special status, and I'm bringing VIPs and congressmen and things to this place, and I'm not allowed to even get close to this thing. But anyway, it's nearby there, and it's on a winding road, very small road, and it's like, and then you get there and you see this thing, it's like, what the heck? And I don't know if there's any other way to get there. It's even close to the French border because it's, Kaiserslautern and all that is right by there. So you're winding around and you see this big, it's like a mountain rock, and a big, right into the rock is bored into this thing, and that's where everybody is supposed to go, like my boss, for example. I don't think I was there with him at that time, I mean the commanding general. And anyway, but they're supposed to go and hide out in this cave and direct operations against the bad Ruskies. When Ivan comes across that border, boy, you better be ready. So anyway, heard that in, I think it was basic training or some places. Anyhow, but anyway, Rutte, he was giving a talk out there, and this guy was saying that Ukraine needs to get $1 billion worth of weapons every single month, starting almost immediately. So about now. Incredible. So I think maybe it's after this news. Maybe I don't know if it was coming after they knew that Witkoff and Kushner left, and maybe it's supposed to scare Donald Trump. I have no idea, but I tell you what, it's probably not going to scare Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to say, well, that's fine and dandy with me. You guys go ahead and do what you want to do. But we're not going to be any part of this. If you guys want to commit suicide, go for it. Oh, you can't believe it. Anyway, I don't know. You could do a special just on the insanity of some of these leaders in the EU. It's just absolutely unbelievable. I can't even believe it. Nobody can believe this stuff. I mean, as soon as the corruption hits Ukraine, they want to send even more money. As a matter of fact, that's what did Merz do? They had $8 billion allocated to go to Ukraine, and after this corruption scandal, then right away he upped it to $11 billion. So it's like, oh, they're stealing a certain amount of money, so therefore we have to send more money because they're shaving off this amount of money, so we got to up the amount. So in other words, we don't give a crap about you taxpayers. We're just going to keep on taking your money. The whole objective is Ukraine, man. We got to get Ukraine because we're shaving off some of the money ourselves, and Ukraine, yeah, that's where it's at, baby. I don't know. Anyway, everybody, thanks for joining me this time, like always. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Sorry, the video's again very long. So bye-bye.